This is day 4 of the November 90 7-day retreat in Springwater. We may come back to some of the unanswered questions from yesterday or the day before, but I will read again what has been written down. How can I get so deeply into my breathing practice that I feel no longer outside of it? I've been feeling a lot of sadness. What is that? Don't we need ambition in life in order to achieve something? In the performing arts, for instance, isn't ambition necessary? Could anything be created without ambition? I feel a great yearning within me for God, for security, for being taken care of by a God. Even though I dropped the belief a long time ago, that yearning is still there. What is a thought? You mentioned that thoughts are connected with feeling, and that is why they seem so real. Also, wouldn't you say that just the fact that thoughts arise puts them into the realm of experienced phenomena, and so, in this sense, gives them a felt reality? What makes thoughts happen? What makes the heart beat? What makes the heart beat with desire, with fear? I'm interested in hearing what could be said in truth about the obsessive mind, about its connection with wanting. What is a thought? Let's start with that. Sometimes in old scriptures, Buddhist or Hindu or yogic, thought is labeled the enemy, or something ungraspable, something totally elusive or elusive. Flowers in the air. But thought itself, as it happens, can be perceived. No matter what we think and say that thought is, it can be directly perceived as it is happening. One person said, it's relatively easy to directly see a tree, a blue jay alighting on the branch, but much harder to see a thought. Let's examine how hard it is to see a thought by doing something very simple. Can we think of an apple? There it is, isn't it? Can you see it? I can. Maybe the apple I'm thinking about is red with green cheeks, and yours is green with red cheeks. But there it is. It's visible, isn't it? And it came from what? From memory. You've seen an apple before. So have I. We've seen apples. And therefore, we can imagine instantly an apple. So, because there's memory of apples, there is the thought apple. I gave the name of an X fruit that we have never seen or seen a picture of or eaten. We couldn't imagine it. There's no memory for it. A kuka bird. I've heard of a kuka bird. I haven't seen one. So the word can reverberate in the mind. I can see maybe the word and remember the word and take that to an encyclopedia, look up the way I think kuka bird is spelled, and maybe see a picture. If I remember that picture by looking at it so memory picks it up, then I can now imagine a kuka bird and somebody asks about it. And seeing that apple right now, as it appears in the mind, that seeing is the same seeing as seeing a blue jay alight on the branch of the tree. It's the same seeing, same looking. It's a directness about it. Even though in one case I open my eyes and have a visual impact, and here it is whatever it is. I don't know what the explanations are, the most recent ones of brain research, what it is that appears, that is visible. A while ago, the first experiments were done in stimulating with electrodes areas of the brain, and the subject reported vivid memories, including sight, touch, smell, vivid colors. So somewhere there in the skull, there is something remembered. There's a memory storage which can produce upon stimulation an image or a thought. Somebody asked, incidentally, I didn't write it down, why do you, or Krishnamurti for that matter, talk so much about the brain? What is the brain? Is it separate from the body? Isn't everything one? And the person sort of made that gesture. Of course there's no separation. And yet, in picturing the apple right now, does one picture it in the area of the big toe? Or the belly? Or is there something here in this area? It's open to examining. Maybe one does imagine it in the belly. I don't know. One could imagine oneself imagining it in the belly and see an apple down here. Not making fun of anybody. Please, whenever I laugh or people laugh at a question being said, we're not ridiculing each other, we're laughing together. It could be very hurtful if one feels ridiculed. Even though one can look at that, because we're asking, what is it that gets hurt? And right there one can look. My image of being this and that, respectful or so on. People laugh at me. We've been hurt so much in the past by being laughed at. That reverberates now. So the reason that the brain is mentioned is it's noticeable as something is operating under this plate here between the temples. Behind the eyeballs, right behind the eyeballs, one has learned in physiology is the extension of the brain is the retina, and one can see almost right behind the eyes an image emerging. Just seeing the apple needs to have no particular feeling connected. It was just seeing that apple. But one may see the apple in a more complex way. One may see oneself grabbing that apple and biting into it, tasting the bitter, the sour, sweet juiciness of it, cracking between the teeth, one can hear it almost. And with that more complex image can arise the desire to have an apple right now. Or maybe later this noon I'm going to get that apple. And yesterday when there was some laughter when the person was mentioning in sitting, not wanting anything special, or not trying to do anything special, but images of food coming up, one can look at how that operates. It's very important to see the operation of desire directly, the whole process from beginning to end. And it is perceivable, just as we're doing right now. And as it is, if it is seen directly, it has a different impact on our total being as if it is not seen and just operates mechanically. So in sitting, not much going on, no special stimulation coming from a life of a lot of stimulation, work, radio, traffic, children, family, office. And sitting here, particularly for the first few days, it's almost like going through a withdrawal, absence of stimulation. And the pain or discontent or gnawing discomfort that goes with a state of withdrawal, expected or a stimulation one is used to or addicted to, and the absence of that. And with that state can come not just feelings of discontent, which are physically palpable, but also anxiety, whatever. One has to look. But in that state, the mind begins to produce stimulation. For one person, maybe food, for another person, sex, for another person, money, numbers, plans, projects, work, vacation in Hawaii. And watch it. It is watchable. As this image comes up of the food, seeing oneself have that and more of it, and wanting it and eating it. Filling the hunger that has never been looked at or felt directly. The hunger of inner emptiness, shallowness, nothingness, discontent. Out of that come images that are stimulating or entertaining or desirable. Not just the object or the person or the piece of food, but oneself with that person, having that food, being on a boat trip in the Caribbean. And with this imaging, which we can look at it now, it's right visible, isn't it? Seeing oneself on a boat in a blue ocean, blue-green. We were once in the Bahamas. The water is incredibly clear. Never seen such a color before, so one can begin to see this, and not long until one wants to be there. And desire arising, and desire being what? Look at it, feel it. The whole body is affected, like iron filings in the presence of a magnet, arranging themselves. The body arranges itself for action, for enjoyment, for tasting, feeling. So no one is saying control desires or be free or rid of desires, but can they be directly observed as they arise? And what better place than a quiet sitting in which there's nothing much going on? The mind performing the role of an entertainer. Yes, was in that long question, why do thoughts come up? Why do they come up? That they come from memory, we have tested out. Remember the room you're in, you can visualize it immediately, can't you? Try to remember the room that I'm in. If you've never seen it, you can't, there's no picture coming up, no memory of it. If there is a memory of it, you can picture it. So memory is absolutely necessary for thought to arise, some kind of memory. But why does the memory arise in the first place? Why doesn't it just sit there quietly? I don't know, we have to find out. Why do we think? Why do thoughts come up? Not say, well, it's because of this and this and this, but to watch it. And maybe finding out that it is fantasizing in place of being with the blahs, the state of withdrawal, the discontent or the pain, the anxiety about being so shallow or not having anything, nothing to look forward to, not being anyone. And can that be plumbed itself, that state of boredom, or whatever name one gives to it? And the reason I'm giving a name to it right now is only for the sake of communication. So we're in tune with each other, at least verbally. But to look at the state in which all of these stimulating thoughts come up, one mustn't give it a name, or not just leave it with naming it. Oh yeah, I know I'm in a state of withdrawal. That made sense, what she said, and that's what I'm in right now. Then it's a verbal witness with the words, with the concept. But we're asking for more than that. What is that state? Non-verbally. Person asked the first meeting, you talk so much, but a lot of non-verbal stuff is going on within me. And the words that are said here are not to fixate us in the verbal on the verbal level. But what do these words refer to? Boredom, pain, vagueness, or haziness, one person reported in the first meeting. Can one be with that haziness, or be that haziness, without wanting it to be otherwise? Which happens if the mind projects the image of clarity, for instance. If in feeling in the midst of haziness, I think of clarity, seeing myself, imagining myself as a clear person, then I want that. Desire is set into motion, which can be observed. The haze, feeling of haziness, then the thought of clarity, seeing myself, being clear, and all systems are go to get it. I want that. And what does wanting feel like? Listen to it like to the drips of rain. Maybe right now there's no wanting, but we can listen to the raindrops without calling them anything. Do the words raindrops falling, do they interfere with listening? So that the verbal is the main mode? Or can there be a listening in which a word, a label, does not interfere? It's just seen for a word. But the listening is open and open. Vulnerably open. By vulnerable we mean undefended, unprotected, open. We've asked several times here and in meetings, how do we think about ourselves? And can one notice the impact of the way we think about ourselves on our physical organism? Or let's say on this physical organism, because it has no owner, it's just functioning in a very marvelous way. Saying, I'm no good, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, has impact, doesn't it? The image of myself as being that affects the whole physiology, glands, muscles, moods. Can one begin to observe this as these thoughts come up? Or the fact that feelings are aroused and maybe in the guts makes one say, well, I have a gut feeling that I am a failure. We do that. And we don't say what brought the gut feeling about, the thought about ourselves or someone else. And then we say, I have a gut feeling that this is so. As the person who wrote down the question is describing. The feeling, sensations, emotions giving validity to the thought, a reality. Because we've thought in such terms and such images about ourselves all life long, it's assumed that that's what we are. And we're attached to that image, even if it's the image of a loser or failure, or the image of someone very successful or good or popular or capable, better than others. One person mentioned it, I've just discovered this image, being better than others. Someone else, the image being not as good as others. It's the same process of image making with different effects on the body. And these effects that the body manifests, the reality of a gut feeling or some sinking feeling in the solar plexus or some high beat in the heart, adrenaline, maybe energy coming from that. These sensations elicit about all kinds of chemical processes, lend reality, the feeling of reality to the images we have of ourselves as being true, real. Me, the real me, is all the images about myself. And if the image gets attacked, I feel hurt, physically hurt, or angry, or afraid. She doesn't like me. He's against me. Or he or she approves of me, admires me. It's all about the image which I'm identified with as me. This is a tremendous process going on, tremendous impact on ourselves, our relationship with each other, our outlook on the whole world. So, can one get glimpses of it? listen to it when we're talking about it, wondering about it. Really beginning to wonder about this. Now, I'm not saying everybody's beginning to do this. People have been doing this for years. Maybe before they ever came to a place like this. Wondering about, why am I so self-conscious? The straitjacketedness of self-consciousness. Self-consciousness being, what is it? What is self-consciousness? When I say I feel so self-conscious, what do I mean when I say that? Can mean all kinds of things. I may imagine people seeing me in a certain way in which I don't want to be seen. People projecting an image onto me which I don't want to fulfill. And yet afraid of that happening, afraid of the images that are being brought to me, projected onto me. Which can just be seen, right? You can see somebody is projecting an image. So that's what's happening. One understands that process in oneself. One has observed it and is observing it very carefully. And here it's going on in someone else too, of course. It's the same brain, the same organism, the same history. I mean, evolution-wise, we have different backgrounds, culture and education-wise, and so forth. But the evolution of this organism is the same for all of us. It's the same evolution, the same brain, the same adrenaline, the same heart. Not identical, but the same in principle, in process. So, we were at self-consciousness. I remember when I used to, in the center in which I was training, we used to do this walking between sittings, and I was so self-conscious and wondered whether there was ever any chance of this self-consciousness not being there. Self-consciousness being, are they looking at me approvingly or disapprovingly? Am I doing right? Or I'm doing so well, I'm so concentrated, so full of hara. I hope they all see that. Trying to set an example is also self-consciousness. Self-consciousness is thinking about oneself, isn't it? With fear and hope. Fear that I'm not going to be seen, or hope that I will be seen. Fear of disapproval, hope of approval. And totally occupied with that. And it's affecting one's way of walking. Maybe one will walk better, or maybe one will start to stumble. Being afraid one may stumble and then attract attention. And one has already stumbled. Tremendous power of thought and image. On our moment-to-moment behavior, and with that on our moment-to-moment relationship with each other, and in walking, relationship with the floor. It's not a real relationship then. Something to use in order to do well, not just something that's there. And something begins to be there when there's not this total occupation and preoccupation with the image of myself. And how this preoccupation diminishes, I can't say what the process is, but it does. That's the amazing thing. It's a miracle that this process can not only diminish but be absent for periods of time, longer or shorter. No preoccupation with oneself. and therefore in touch with the floor, with the people, the air. The thought that arises, you're good, can be seen and dispelled in the seeing. The seeing dispels it as so much bother, sometimes poison. How bad I am, how good I am. It's toxic. Okay, so in this day and age, we're so toxic conscious, toxins conscious. Try to find toxins wherever they are and eliminate them, but very little talk, or none hardly, about the toxicity of our thoughts on the system. Hateful thoughts, angry thoughts. And we're still not saying that the word may be so heavy that it sounds condemningly, but it's meant descriptively. And I think we all know that. When we're obsessed with something, a person's asking also about obsessive mind. Obsessed with somebody who hurt us. Obsessed with taking revenge, hurting him or her back. It's not all spelled out very consciously, but it's operating in the system from ancient habit, not just of my life, but the parents with whom I live, the society of which I'm a part, the culture, the history, is one of vengeance taking for hurt suffered or for aggression suffered. You must pay back, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, says the Bible. Holy Scripture saying eye for eye, tooth for tooth. And the other Holy Scriptures say similar things. When one is enraged, one can't think clearly, can one? One can't see clearly, can't hear clearly. Everything is distorted. The perceptive process is not clear and open. That is a fact, it's not a condemnation. It's a fact that we can observe, come upon, in direct discovery. As a hateful thoughts about somebody, there is a spinning and a narrowing and a fuzziness in the mind. Obsessed with this thought and with continuing the thought. And therefore perceiving under the influence of these obsessive thoughts and obsessive physiological reactions to the thoughts. Why is this so, the person says? Well, can you say something about the obsessive mind? I know how it was put. The obsessive mind and its connection with wanting. We just talked about its connection with retaliating or paying back. Here's obsession with wanting. I think we touched upon that earlier. Not as this is vaguely noticed to say, I must not want. I must think of constructive or meditative thoughts or something. But to look at it, open it up. What is going on right now in this obsessive wanting? Where does it come from? And we touched upon it. The mind is feeling discontented, scared, empty, in a withdrawal, no stimulation. Maybe that state has not been noticed, and now what is there is the thinking of what one wants and wanting it. We went through that. The thought of what one wants and what goes with it physiologically, chemically, neurologically. And the state of body producing more thoughts, because once a body is excited, that brings the demand for more thoughts to keep the excitement going. It's not only thoughts stimulating physical states, but physical states stimulate more thoughts. Because if you feel stimulated, we want to continue feeling stimulated. It feels so good. We feel alive. And thoughts help us feel alive. Whether these are angry thoughts or sexual thoughts, thoughts of food, because the body is functioning, it's not so numb and blah feeling. It's operating. So can there be insight into this process as it's happening? One person asked, how can I get, if I remember it right, sort of, it's happened before, so I remember it, get sort of inside the breathing so that I don't feel apart from anything anymore in my breathing practice. We haven't talked about practice because for some reason it hasn't come up in this retreat. Some retreats right from the start, people ask, what is the practice that you're giving at this place? No one has asked it, so I haven't talked about it. So, now that it's come up, let us ask, why does one have to make breathing into a practice? We're breathing, aren't we? We listen to it right now. Listen, feel. Something going on, isn't there? As one gives attention to it. It's there. The belly is moving. There's all kinds of stuff. One can't put it all into words. Why does listening to that have to be a practice? Why can't it be simple listening? Is it because it's so hard to be simple? We always have to tackle everything with instruments, with techniques. We've been brought up this way. Everything is hard. One person said that to me. I still have that whole ethic in me that things have to come in a hard way. And when you were talking yesterday about somebody saying all of a sudden there was lightness, I wondered whether that's even good, that something is lightly done. Shouldn't I work hard? This is how we're conditioned, we are. But we're discovering it too, aren't we? So we're not under the total mechanical influence of this conditioning, that things have to be hard to be good. So, of course one can do all kinds of things with breathing practice. Many of us have been through it, maybe still doing it. One can be so into breathing practice that one gets almost lightheaded and feels enlightened. And then one wants that again. How did I do that? Yes, this is how I did it. And maybe it comes again. And then one starts a school of teaching that to others. One can hold out a goal and one has a technique. That's the easiest teaching there is. This other stuff we're doing is very hard, very difficult. Yeah, I'm saying it. contributing to the mess. What I meant what the person was saying was that at times there is no one who's doing this practice. It happens on its own. But it happened on its own before we started the practice. But is there a way of listening without techniquing? And if you say, well, when I listen to the breathing, I feel outside of it, as the doer of it, or the one who has this breath, the one who is experiencing the breath, then why not question this division? Why is there this feeling of division? Because what's actually going on is breathing. That's all that's going on. And then the thought, I am breathing, which we've thought for as old as we are, ever since we've been thinking, and everybody else around us talks in the same way. Very difficult not to talk in this way, almost impossible. Language has tremendous power. But if one says I'm breathing, can one be cautious of not meaning that there is a separate I that is doing the breathing? It's just a way of putting it with the language we have. And if one is careful with language, I've come under quite a bit of criticism for using careful language, saying it sounds so unnatural when you always says one is doing this. And so why don't you say I am doing it? It's all right to say, but one has to be careful not to make out of that, or out of the one for that matter, something separate that is doing what is going on its own. And this happening on its own is discoverable when we're not so infatuated with our techniques, or attached to them, addicted to them. Paying attention to the breathing as an exercise is like any exercise. We exercise our muscles and our heart, aerobics, we dance around for an hour to get the heart going. Do all kinds of exercises, so why not exercise the mind to concentrate on the breathing? It's just as legitimate as any other exercise, but not to expect from that one will gain insight or become enlightened, or this is a means to that. It's just a way of concentrating the mind. And there's a place for a concentrated mind. I always visualize when I talk about this during the Olympics, sometimes watching the swimming, and someone standing on that 10-meter board backwards, just toes touching that board. And you look at that person and it's such concentration. No room for another thought, or else he couldn't take off and do what he or she is doing. Or counting, doing math, or almost in any mental work, it's very helpful to be able to concentrate. Whether concentrating the mind with breathing exercise has a carryover to being a concentrated bookkeeper, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. You know, when I was myself giving these practices out to people, being under the auspices of a school, of a Zen center, first you count each inhalation and exhalation, and you just count this, and then you count that, and then you drop the counting, you just attend to the breathing. It's amazing to me that, or not amazing, but people were asking, well, how can I concentrate my mind better? Here you had a practice, and still you want to do it better, and you want to have a practice to do the better practice. And some people just do it like that, and others can never do it, which doesn't mean they can't see something. I also found having a mind that is able to concentrate has nothing to do with a mind that is able to see what it's doing. On the contrary, very often it is a hindrance, because one is so habituated now to concentrating, that one is afraid to open up and look. The practice has come in good stead to eliminate disturbing thoughts and emotions. That is the danger of concentrative practice. Using it to keep the mind clear, whatever that clarity is, undisturbed, which means there's a constant battle going on with disturbances, outward and inward disturbances, and using concentrative practices to cut the disturbance. We've been through that, most of us, haven't we? People tell me that after 15 or 20 years still use a koan to cut off an angry feeling rather than looking at it, feeling it, understanding it, becoming deeply and superficially aware of it. So in listening to the breathing, which is there, is it used not to feel the pain in the heart? Or can the pain in the heart, if it's there, breathe? So that there's no division between the breathing and the pain, the hurt, the anxiety, the anger. The attention is not focused on this versus that, and therefore does not create conflict. It's difficult because we are so used to conflict. We live in it all the time. We have been brought up in it. It's good to have a battle, good to be in struggle. And it does arouse energies. Struggling arouses energies. We have come to believe that the only energies which are available are the ones which are aroused by our thoughts and images and moral principles. By our ambition. Ambition arouses tremendous energies, doesn't it? Person asking, isn't that a necessary ingredient in doing well in the performing arts? This is a question that is very commonly brought up by people who are engaged in the performing arts. One has been nurtured in this belief that it needs ambition. But what is ambition? And what does it need to create? What is needed to be creative? Because that was part of the question, would there be anything creative ever done without ambition? Sometimes people have asked, doesn't one have to be neurotic to be a good painter? Or a good musician, because all the great musicians were neurotic and the great painters. Maybe without ambition and without neuroticism we would have no art. I don't know. I wouldn't believe that. I would wonder about the whole thing. About creativity. Does that need this impulse of me getting someplace? It works. I want to get someplace, badly enough or passionately enough, I usually get there. And very often at the expense of others. Competitiveness is part of ambition. Pushing others out of the way to get to the top or to the first place. And is it at all possible to do something excellently well without pushing the me at the expense of others? Without self-image, just for the sake of doing what is a joy to do? Singing or playing an instrument, painting or performing on the stage, and dropping all ambition, all self-consciousness because of the thing itself. No, the thing is doing itself. Actually, we function much, much more healthily and wholesomely and with a different energy when that self-centered dynamo is quiet. We've always believed that's where our energies come from this me dynamo, which has to generate energies to get someplace. And because it has worked, we believe in it, and we think nothing else is possible. But here we're questioning everything. And people have told me this, who've painted particularly with a brush painting. The moment you want to get someplace with it, it just doesn't work. That's why some of these astonishing brush paintings done in ancient Zen culture, which probably came from a hand that was not self-conscious. It did not want to be somebody or impress others. I don't know. The pictures seem to speak of that. And anyone who performs knows that. That if that desire to be best or to outdo or to be well reviewed, if that drops out of the picture, then maybe something happens that is truly creative. Because the moment the performance is over, one wonders what are the reviews going to be like. And anxiously waiting for the paper and looking for one's name. And that's not creative. That's very mechanical and brings with it either tremendous ecstasy for a moment or down, depression, or envy of someone else who got a better review, which may already become the incentive to outdo this person next time I will be reviewed better than him or her. And these thoughts generate energies, there's no question about it. But do they generate creativity in the sense in which we were speaking before? No self-consciousness, not thinking about me, but just the music or the movement. Is something to be observed, not to be decided ahead of time. One has to watch. Is the ambition just doing something for its own sake? And can self-interest, self-centeredness filter out in the watching, in the looking, seeing its dangers, its narrowness, its ups and downs, and its division from other people? And then will one still want to perform, paint, write music? As often people say, I'm afraid if I drop that, then I won't do anything. That's, of course, an idea. And that idea may keep one from experimenting, from looking. It's too dangerous stuff to look at, because I may lose it. Depends on why one does this work. To really find out, or just as means to an end. But we can look at the process of using attention as means to an end. Give attention to that. And find that when there is this means to an end program running, there is not complete attention. Because part of the attention is on the goal. So we're coming back to one of our initial questions. What is awareness without a goal? Sitting down and just awareness. Maybe not even awareness, just what is, just what's there. Whatever it is. What is it? We will end here for today.